Hi everybody, it's time for another Innkeep development diary. I'm going to keep this one nice and short compared to the previous one that I did. The idea is to try and keep this under 10 minutes, so let's see if we can actually manage that. I'm just going to go through all the new stuff for development one item at a time, and let's start with movement. Here we go, check this out. Oh my goodness. I can't help, honestly I can't help giggle a little bit when I see this guy. So yeah, this is it. This is the biggest difference, I think. One of the biggest things, at least not in terms of hours, but of the effect. Your main player sprite doesn't glide over the floor anymore. He actually moves about. And some of you may know this, some of you might not, but I've been working on Innkeep since 2006. So 2005? 2005. 4 years now. It's December 2018. 4 years, I never animated the player sprite. And yet, if you look at the environment of this game, you can see where my priorities were. Which is kind of funny, because when I started Innkeep, I was working at an animation company. Not as an animator, but, you know, I did know something about animation. So, yeah, now I've actually done it. And it's a little bit funny. It's a work in progress, you can see, but it captures the spirit of the game a little bit. It's a bit cheeky. His stomach's kind of bouncing up and down, a little bit comical, but yeah, maybe I'll make his arm swing a little bit left to right later and do a few other things. But basically, this is what it's going to look like, and I'm going to be able to use the work that I did on this as kind of a frame for other characters that I might animate in the future. So that's one thing. That's a pretty big thing, I think. It really. Yeah, I mean, compared to him gliding around the place, it really does start to make this feel like a game, so I'm loving it. That's one thing. Another thing, which is also pretty cool, you'll have noticed just by looking, is that we now have candles back on the tables. Now, right now, they're not on top of plates or anything. I might put them on top of plates if I decide that's visually better. That's fairly simple to do, but for now, they're just straight on the wood of the tables. And you can see that if I mouse over, I can highlight them. Yeah. So I'm able to light them just by magic, like turning a light switch on and off. I don't need a light source to light them, and that's something else that might change later. But for now, I can simply click on them and turn them on. And for those of you who followed me since years ago, I did have candles way in the past, but this was all back in the kind of, how can I say, the prototype days. And there's a lot of functionality from the prototype which still, couple of years later, has not made it back into the actual game that I'm working on. But this is a big step. Now candles are back, and they're not only back, but like everything else, they're better. And to just show you how this is the case, what I'm going to do now is just jump ahead with time, right? And sunset, and it's getting dark. And what have we got here? You can kind of see how each candle has its own little pool of radiance. And that if you look carefully, you can see that the tables are actually flickering a little bit, and each table is flickering slightly differently in a way that kind of matches the individual candles. And if I come and stand next to a candle, you'll see that I'm lit up with the light coming from that candle, and then I'm also flickering a little bit as well. If I come over here, same thing. So shadow, light, shadow, light. Or if I come over here, it's a little bit more obvious. There's a little bit of bugginess you'll see like just there, like that's a bug right there. So I'm still kind of tinkering a little bit, but it doesn't crash, which is pretty good. Not crashing is good. And the idea in the future maybe is to add a few more effects, like a little bit of backlighting here and there, or this or that. But basically, there we go. Now, something that is going on here as well, if you look at the overall ambient lightness, I'll just bring up this new debug thing. I've kind of worked on this too. It's kind of a feature, but not one that you'll ever know about while playing. So you can see here, this is a shadow map difference. It's actually a light map. Each one of these candles has its own light map, and the little number you see flickering there, that's the variation in the amount of shadow that's currently being cast on my player. If I was to, let's see, hit M for shadow map, you can actually now, this is debug of course, but you can see these kind of weird sprites, and the game is reading the data from these. So it's the same system I use for the windows in the bedrooms, but now I'm using it for the lights, and it's linked up with something else called ambient darkness. So right now it's kind of 70% dark. But if I was to, I don't know if you can, oops, see the little animated smoke there. If I was to turn these off, right, you now see 74%, 76, 78, and now it's ambient darkness is 80%. So this is kind of like max darkness. You can always see a little bit even with no light sources. But what that means is the candles don't only cast their own little area of light, they also add to the ambient light of the inn. And if you look up here in the GUI, you can see the windows of the inn here. Yeah, so keep looking up here. You'll see now there's a little bit of light being cast. And if this is going to look a bit silly, maybe with the sprite when I grab the wood, but you can see now the ambient darkness is now only 54%, and we have this nice kind of effect here in the GUI window of it glowing to show that. And you'll see here I've got this light map going on as well for the fireplace, and that effect as well, you know, it's a bit sudden how suddenly he's all lit up and then he's not, but that's, I can work on that. That's so I have done some other work behind the scenes to kind of clear up this fireplace and make that look a bit nicer. And then there's something else. Another feature is that I've been working a lot on guest sprites, on designing some of the guests that are going to be visiting the inn. And I've added a kind of a debug menu so that I can load them in to show them off to you. And here's one. Here's another, kind of like a peasant woman. I might load in, here we go, like a kind of a soldier type. Here, I like this guy. He's a warrior. And we've got a bard, load her over here, and we've got this guy, he's a kind of a peddler, and we've got this kind of like a rogue type adventurer character. So this is just a kind of a taste, but imagine that when you're playing the game, you're going to have all of these different types of characters visiting your inn. They'll be sitting at the tables drinking like they did back in the prototype days. You can see a slight animation here. They're all blinking, but only this guy's got a slight resting animation. But all of them will have like a very simple little animation. And then you'll be able to talk to these different characters. So if I now change to the mouth, you can see I can highlight these guys like this, right? So if I was to click on him, you can see that's opened up a little dialogue now with this person chatting, or like so, and like this. And this is just, you know, a mock-up. I haven't worked out anything in terms of really how I'm going to get conversations to work just now, but I have unlocked that. And how that works as well, I'll just kind of reset so we can have a bit of light, and I'll just see if I can show a couple of things here. Let's see. Alright, so you can see with these three guests that they're overlapping. This is one more thing to show off about how highlighting works. So if I move my mouse over this guy, despite the fact that the cursor is also over the woman at the same time, it only highlights him. If I move over to here, there we go. Pixel perfect collision there. Like so, like so. 1, 2, 3. So the cursor always knows which character is on top and draws relative to that. The highlighting, meanwhile, is kind of done with a little shader effect, so it does need a little bit of maybe clearing up here and there, but it's pretty good. So yeah, that's something that I'm pretty happy with, that works nicely. That guests are in. You'll see before when it was dark that the lighting system works with them as well. That's all happening. So that integration of ambient light, the candles, the little GUI thing, we've got guest loading, we've got basic conversation stuff testing and linked up. A lot of kind of early steps have been done now towards having guests come in like in the prototype, sit down and drink and do all of that. Next thing to show, alright, I've got to move along quicker I think, these barrels. So if I mouse over these barrels here, you'll see that each one kind of fades to reveal like a kind of a cross section, and inside you've got your drinks. Now, the idea is that you can always see very clearly what is going on in terms of like the volume of drinks left over. But that's just kind of the after effect of me wanting to deal with another issue. So you might remember that I used to have the barrels under here, And one of the problems with that was, well, there are two problems. One was that it made no sense, because you simply could not pour drinks if your barrels are right down by the floor. So it just didn't make any sense. Any real place would have the barrels on the table like this. The other issue was that we had a kind of situation where, you know, I wanted to have more space under here for things like candle storage and drink storage and stuff like that in the future. And moving the barrels up here made space for that. So that's basically why this happened. But then I used the opportunity to try and make the barrels look a lot sexier, and I think it was worth it, because you'll be, you know, manipulating these quite a lot, and it's worthwhile to have them look, you know, nice. However, because of their larger perspective, that meant I did have to do quite a bit of work to kind of sort out how things go with the cellar again. So you'll see now, if you've seen previous versions of this cellar, that this is a little bit different. So previously I had room for like 12 barrels, and now it's 9. But I think 9's enough, and each barrel now holds more the way I've designed it. Speaking of which, just so you know how hard making this stuff is, inside you can see these sprites here showing the length. Each individual barrel, that sprite is made up of 52 sub-sprites, unique sub-sprites, so that you can slowly see them go from one stage to the next. And each one of these 3 sprites has actually got a very slight different perspective. So those are 3 unique sprites times 150 for a total of about, times 50 for a total of about 150 sub-sprites. So I'm not kidding when I say, like, the contents of these barrels by themselves took a day, like a full day's work. Game making, everybody. Don't do it. Yeah, alright, so I think we're doing pretty good here. We've had guest sporting, new barrels, the animated player, lighting. We've talked about light map integration with ambient light, candles, conversation, GUI feature, blah blah blah. That concludes it for new features. So let me spend maybe 1 minute, or I promise I won't ramble forever, talking about the future. And what's going to happen, guys, it's pretty exciting. 2019, alright, here's my 2019 resolution. You are going to get to play an alpha build of Innkeep this coming year. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that you'll be able to walk around in this space like you can see me doing in the video. Some guests will come in. You'll be able to assign them to some bedrooms. They'll sit down. You'll serve them drinks, and you'll be able to talk to them a bit. And then at night time they'll go to their rooms, and that's when you will hopefully be able to try and steal from them a bit. So the idea is to set up a kind of a demo during the year, which starts to showcase some of the core game loop features. It will be missing a lot, and there's no way it's going to even remotely resemble, for example, anything in terms of the bigger plot lines, or, you know, the progression of things over time in the game. But you'll be able to at least have a feel of walking around this environment and doing some of the basic stuff. And the idea there is that I'm going to use this demo and start thinking about maybe talking to publishers, so that I can actually get some funding and work on this full time for, you know, a little while, to push it out the door. So if you are a publisher and you're listening to this, please send me an email. Alright, everybody, so that's it. I promised I'd keep it short. I think I failed to stay under 10 minutes, but I'm not sure. Anyway, a lot shorter than last time. I'll try and get back to you with another video before too long, showing off some neat stuff with game loop related elements. Thanks for listening, and please do consider dropping by Patreon. If you support me for even $1 a month, you get access to some neat stuff, such as music being developed by John. Bye bye.